Alright guys, so my project this weekend is to install some steps in my cargo trailer conversion. I got myself a two-step set of the Lippert Solid Steps. I bought this. This is not sponsored. Nobody sponsors me. Nobody knows I even exist except you guys. So anyway, this is, obviously made for an RV travel trailer. But we're going to try to adapt it to the cargo trailer. We'll walk over here. So I got started without you before. I thought, gee, I ought to videotape this. So, your standard cargo trailer door is just a bunch of aluminum channel that's been bolted together to fill a hole. And the doors are, these aren't standard RV doors. They're just made for cargo trailers. So what I'm doing here, let me get this in position. See if that'll hold. This is the bracket that the stairs eventually bolt to. And my task is to get it to fit where this angle right here will drop down level with this and then push back level with this. And that's all to let the door be able to shut. So you can see I'm still about a ½ inch high here. I'm hoping I don't have to go in beyond this here, can't point, that I can stick out 1/8 of an inch, and the door weather stripping will accommodate that. We'll find out. If it doesn't, I may have to cut this whole section of aluminum channel out so this thing can flush back with this. I'm also going to, the way I'm going to approach it, I'm cutting this little piece of trim off right here, right now, to let this thing push back further. And then I'm going to try the door again, and if it still won't shut, I may have to start taking floor out to get this thing to go down flush with the floor. So that's my plan. I'm not going to videotape the whole thing because I just don't have the equipment to do that. But I'll try to video as I go through different steps and show you how it's going. So I've been working a couple hours trying to figure out the best way to fit this thing on a cargo trailer. One of the issues is this door jamb here, or seal plate, I guess. It's just a little too high. You can see how the step flange here is wanting to drop below it. So there really wasn't any way to get the door to shut with this in place. So I ended up cutting out that metal and then putting another piece of thinner aluminum trim back in. Just some stuff I had around, and I've got some holes to fill now. I'll probably use JB Weld aluminum or something. These really aren't going to show once I get them touched up, because either the door will be closed or the steps will be down. So I'll JB Weld both of these seams, or possibly even silicone. So what I decided to do was cut into my second floor. I've got the original subfloor, or the original floor, and then you can see I've got the pink foam, and then I had another subfloor on top of that. And just through trial and error, I figured out that if I cut the foam and the top board out, took the foam out, and then dropped the top board down with one layer of flooring, it'll set this thing at the right level to where when it closes or opens like this, the door will shut. Now you can see a couple of rub marks here. That's as good as I can get it. I'm gonna have rub marks. Afterthought, if you wanted to really get into it, I guess a person could take the bottom of the door off and trim it up about 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, but I didn't want to get into that and tearing that door apart. This seemed a lot easier. Another thing is, I initially thought I would just have to trim out the subfloor just up to the hinge, but that's not true, because when you open it up, this thing wants to lay flat. In other words, if the floor was the original thickness beyond that hinge, it would start pulling these screws up as it's laying down. This thing needs to lay down that way to fold everything inside, I believe. We'll find out. So that's where I am now. Oops. So my plan to make this look nice, I just use this subfloor or the laminate floor here to get the spacing. I'll pull all that loose. I'll put new laminate floor in that sunken section. And then I've got this 1/2 inch angle trim I'll cut and make trim around, kind of like I did this step, except they'll be inside corners instead of outside corners. So that's the plan. Of course, if my cargo trailer, I did like Bill and Deb, and had the door well taken out. No door well. If you have a door well, it's going to be a totally different situation. So, if you're doing this, you may have to come up with a new plan. But this is what's working for me if you've got a floor that's flush with the threshold of the door. So one of the issues that I knew I had going into this project was clearance. The cargo doors are built a little different than traditional RV doors, and you can see maybe there's about a 1/4 inch clearance here, and then they have this lip, which just wasn't going to allow for this step flange to go over the top and clear. So I did have to cut this door jam down threshold, and that's another reason why I sunk the floor to allow this to drop down enough to let the door clear this. And as you can see, I've still got a little bit of rubbing, but I don't know what else to do. Like I said in the earlier part of the video, one could cut the door down, raise it up. I was looking at other videos of people installing these on traditional RVs, and the door seems to work a little different. They've got the weather stripping directly on the bottom, or it's the brush type weather stripping, and they just have a little more clearance. I don't think these step builders build this design and don't expect it to work on most of your RVs. So they've figured out what kind of clearance that a typical RV might have. So anyway, if you're doing this on a cargo trailer, you're probably going to have to make some modifications like I did here. The latching system worked well. As long as you got a frame like this, or I've seen guys even cut angle aluminum and just put a bracket up. This worked well. I've got wood trim all the way flush with this, so I did have to come in here and make a little notch, and I had to put some paint in that, just give this thing a little room to slide in. And then it seems to be very secure once you get the door closed. I don't think it's going anywhere. If you're riding inside here, yeah, it's going to make a lot of racket, but we're not going to be riding inside. So I've got the trim all cut and fit for this. Waiting on some screws from Amazon to countersink them, but these surface mounted screws work for now. And then I cut some new flooring to drop inside it just to make it look a little better. Along the edge here, I cut it a little short because to clear that metal on the inside there, and I'll just fill this in with caulking. I'll be doing a bead caulk all the way around. I think I'll probably stick this down with some Lexol, just put a little on the back side, and then it's going to have the bolts through it, so it's not going anywhere. There was a cross member right here, so I'm going to have to use screws here, so the bottom plate, I'll chop it into 2 pieces so I can have one for each side. So I've got the laminate floor glued down with Lexol. Went ahead and ran a bead of gray caulk around the edge. Kind of hard to see. There you can see it a little better down this seam here. So I'm gonna let that set up for a few minutes. Let it get a skin on the outside so I don't mess it up. So I've got this fully installed. It's in the upright position now. So I showed this earlier. The latches I had to cut into the wood here to give this cylinder a little room to slide in. This side, the aluminum, it's got a 1/2 inch. So anyway, got that all adjusted. Got everything screwed down. I had to do screws in the middle, and then the rest are bolts with the brace plate underneath. Got everything caulked up, and see if I can do this with one hand and the camera. And everything's in place here now. In fairness to Lippert, it's wet and muddy out here, so adjusting these legs is kind of a pain right now, so there's a little slack. But generally, I'm very pleased with it. Got my little well here, which I didn't need that full depth. I'm actually thinking of getting a one of those like coconut hair rugs or something similar to that and cutting it down to go right in that recess. That might give us a little place to kick off some dirt coming in, and then that could be picked up and shaken off outside. Might help something to make that not a trip hazard. So everything works great except for the one item I talked about, and that's the rubbing. I've got this as low as possible, and the door does shut, but you can see the door bows out just a hair right here. It's not terrible, but it is rubbing down there. So that's going to drive me nuts. Eventually it's going to wear the paint off. It's already started. So I've made an executive decision because this is my trailer and I built it. So I'm going to take these hinges, see if I can get it focused there. And you can see it's got a 3-screw pattern here. So I've marked the bottom with a pencil of each hinge so I could see where it was, actually the top, sorry. And I'm gonna take this door off and try to raise it up about 1/8 of an inch. I've already checked with the door shut. There's about a 1/4 inch clearance up there, and I put a 1/4 inch thick board up there, slid along the top, so I got plenty of clearance. The latch here, the pin's going in near the bottom, so it's got plenty of room to come up. So I'm gonna do that. Like I said, I'm just gonna reverse the drilling pattern here and flip the diamond over so I'm drilling into all new metal, and hope I don't regret it. I think I'll take them all out and just drill one hole in each hinge, probably this back one here. Go ahead and put screws in and then see how the door shuts and all that before I get totally committed. So once I get that done, I'll film that and let you see how it turned out. So I'm starting the door raising exercise. So this is my plan. You have to do what you got to do when you work alone. So I've got this floor jack underneath it with some 4x4s, just barely touching the bottom, just enough to support it. And I'm gonna lay the door open like this, kind of leaning against the trailer. I'm gonna go ahead and take all the screws out, and my plan is to then come try to jack this thing up 1/8 of an inch. We'll see if I can do that. I'll let you see once I get done. All right, folks. So it's a wrap with the Lippert Solid Step stairs. I followed up and relocated the hinges. I know it's kind of hard to see there, but you may see that line there. So I basically raised the door up 1/8 of an inch. I reversed the hole pattern, the new holes, Initially got one screw in the middle hinge of each one, then kind of got it lined up. I actually spent more time pondering about how bad it was going to go than I did actually doing it. Once I was able to get it lifted that 1/8 of an inch and get the first 2 screws in, the rest was a piece of cake. And of course I had 3 extra holes in the hinges, from the original hole pattern. So I just found some screws and run them back in there. They kind of had to cut a little new hole because they had moved 1/8 of an inch, but I figured 6 screws is better than 3. So now the door will shut without rubbing. It goes right in and it goes flush up, and I'm a happy camper. So some afterthoughts on this for guys that might consider using these Lippert Solid Steps on a cargo trailer. I'm very pleased with it. I think they're going to work great. There's all the debate about folding them in and dumping dirt inside your trailer, but hey, just clean them up before you dump them in, or clean up the trailer afterwards. Some other thoughts, learn from my lessons. Since I did the door lift, I kind of wonder if I really had to recess the floor. Now I did a 1/2 inch change plus 1/8, so I moved my, basically moved my door 5/8 of an inch from this. With a cargo trailer, you're definitely going to have to cut this flange. That's a 1/2 inch. This thing would never fit. You wouldn't have that much leeway in shifting your door. And then this piece right here, you're definitely going to have to cut it to let this lay in as flush to this as possible. But I don't know that you really have to recess the floor. You might, initially screw it down with the first 2 screws, and then take some good measurements and see what kind of clearance you have on your door. If you only need 3/8 of an inch and you've got that kind of clearance on your door, you might just try moving your door instead of recessing the floor. If you do have to recess the floor, just remember my lesson. You only have to recess it enough for this depth, not this full depth. I was flipping the whole thing over and laying it flat on the floor before I ever had steps on it. And once I got the steps on, then I understood that really all you need is enough clearance that this edge doesn't catch on that floor as it's flipping up. So really, probably about there. This could have been half the depth into the trailer that I did. But my lesson is your information. Anyway, that's a wrap for this cargo trailer installation edition. Appreciate you watching.